I could feel the prayers. After the surgery the next day, people were praying, and I felt this supernatural healing on my leg that I still feel this sensation I can't describe. It is a pleasing, amazing, like fiery, icy blue sensation. I can feel the healing. And when people pray, or even a couple people came in the room and held my hand, I could feel that. That started my healing. The mental fortitude, prayers work. God is real. Miracles happen. That started the healing.
Welcome back, folks. Now we're joined by Dr. Carrie Madej here on the Health Ranger Report interview on Brighteon.tv. Now, Dr. Madej, first of all, please just say hi to the audience so that they know you're alive and well.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I have a passion for life every day, because when you come that close to death, you see everything in a new light, don't you? I'm happy to be here, happy and excited to share my knowledge of how quickly and supernaturally I've been healing.
Well, that's a fantastic message to share with everybody, because, we're all dealing with some kind of maybe past injury or current injury or some kind of issue we need to overcome. But just to give people a quick summary, could you just briefly, you don't need to get into details, but briefly just give us a summary of what happened. And some of the details have been misreported, and maybe we've misreported some. I apologize if that's the case, but it was hard to get information at first. So give us just the real summary of what happened.
Well, on June 26th, I was flying in it was a Piper single engine airplane, and leaving from St. Pete Airport in Florida, going to Noonan, Georgia Airport, and everything was fine until about 7 miles outside the airport, where there appeared to be engine trouble. The engine started to what I call stutter. The RPMs dropped to 1,500. Let me back up a second. We were at 8,000 feet altitude, and then we're just descending to 5,000 feet, approaching the airport. And it was around 5,000 feet, the engine trouble started. Of course, air traffic control was notified by the pilot. They diverted us to an airport called Warm Springs. And they were in communication, the pilot. And of course, at that time, evidently the obvious things to do, opened all the fuel tanks up, the fuel pump, even the carb heater, I believe, was turned on. Nothing was improved. So, but the plane was still able to glide. And then it was we were getting close to Warm Springs runway, and I remember seeing the runway is right there in view, so close. And then right when we thought we were going to make it, the RPMs within a millisecond, I swear, just dropped to 0. And when that happened, that plane just didn't glide anymore, started to drop like a rock. And then there was farmland and then woods, and the farmland had many power lines in front of it, so we couldn't, the pilot couldn't go where the power lines were, of course. So we were forced to crash into the wooded area. And I remember thinking, the woods? You're kidding me. I was praying the whole time. I had my hand on one side of the plane, on the other hand on the ceiling, and I was praying to Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, saying, I know we are covered under your blood, and praying to God, saying, save us, help us with everything in my being. And when I was doing that, I envisioned a big hand come under the plane, a big hand go on top of the plane, and wings on either side of the plane. And that helped with the calmness. The pilot was calm, and I was too. I was just praying. It was strange, And then also this one other thing. I had about 25 years ago this message from God saying I would not die in a plane crash. It's kind of strange, right? And I remembered that message at that very moment in the plane. And I'm like, okay, you said I wouldn't leave this world by a plane crash, but I guess you didn't say I wouldn't be in a crash. And I saw the trees coming. I'm like, okay. I was praying, and the pilot said, we're going to crash. I said, okay. Time and space is kind of distorted in a trauma. So then the pine trees coming flying into the windshield. And right before that happened, the pilot said, I think there's a logger's trail I can try to follow. So somehow, even through all these pine trees, the plane was, did somewhat follow this logger's trail, which helped save us. And then the impact happened very quickly. I turned my head because I didn't want to look at the impact, which saved my face. I would have been a lot more damaged in my facial area, but of course, a lot of whiplash, skull hit. And where we crashed, there was about 10 to 15 feet before the big tree started again. I mean, you just can't make that up. It's just unbelievable. We did not explode. The pilot lost consciousness and was in and out of consciousness for the entire time while we were in the plane until we were located.
Now, you mentioned, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned the plane did not explode. There was no fire. That's highly unusual in a small aircraft crash like that.
Oh yes, because when you get the wind knocked out of you, almost the life knocked out of you. So this weird grunting, breathing, I had to do that for a while to even catch my, being of surroundings. And then I realized, A, I was still alive. Okay. B, I started to go into doctor mode of triaging. Okay. What body parts do we have? What's going on? That sort of thing. What needs to be done right now? Everything appeared to be somewhat stable with bleeding. It was just my left foot was turned 120 degrees to the opposite direction. It was not, only the skin was holding my foot to my leg, so it was a pretty bad break. And I knew that if the skin broke, I could bleed out. So I knew immediately I had to get the pressure off. So that's where I was able to extricate myself out from the door. Thank goodness I could do that. My wing on that side was clipped at the very end, but there was enough for me to open and pull my body out. It was a very, very hot day, so I ended up getting burns through my clothing by just laying on the wing. And I took the pressure.
You were seated in essentially the co-pilot seat, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So you were able to exit, and you were not bleeding profusely, or
No,
what?
I just had scalp, hematoma and bleeding, but that was it for me. The pilot was bleeding more. So I got pressure off that. I had to reorient the pilot because he had a lot more head trauma. So then I didn't hear any sirens like you hear in the movies, right? I'm like, this is strange. And then I realized after seeing about 15, maybe more minutes that nobody was looking for us, or probably earlier than that. Able to find one of the phones, called 911 dispatch. I don't know if you've heard this, but the initial thing was, I said, we said plane crash, and they asked for a health insurance card to get that out. I'm like,
What?
lady,
What?
I cannot go get a health insurance card. Then COVID status. And I finally got through to her that we were in a plane crash, and if we didn't get help soon, we were in big trouble. So they reassured us, dispatch, that they were working on it. Someone was coming to get us. But again, time elapsed, I would say maybe even 30, 35 minutes. They weren't coming. And then I realized, I said, I think you're lying to us. I said, no one's coming to get us. You don't know where we're at. You need to be honest with us. And pretty much they didn't know where we're at. So what happened is the locator never went off on the plane. Air traffic control had never notified 911 that we were crashing, although they were notified of that. On FlightAware, it looked like we landed in Warm Springs, which we never landed. We didn't land close to that.
That's the issue. Okay. Wow.
But
I mean, this is shocking because the plane is supposed to have an emergency beacon.
Yeah.
And also air traffic control. I mean, I guess if there had been a fire, they would have spotted you easily. But since there was no fire, they figured there's no problem.
And we came in from the top of the trees and just crashed. There was no sliding in. Okay, so there's no entry point from the perimeter.
Wow.
But the air traffic control did know that we were having engine problems and that we couldn't land. So we were dropping from at least 3,000 feet. It was high up. I mean, when the RPMs went to zero. So it's really amazing that I feel that we're still alive. So go back to, I told the dispatch, I'm hanging up on you because when you're on the phone with 911, evidently everything's locked on your phone. You can't do anything. So I said, please stop calling me back. I have to have time to pin us, please. So she finally got that. And then the phone was too hot to work. So I had to put the phone underneath my body and cool it off. And when it was cooled off, then the Wi-Fi went out. Like literally, I didn't get any reception on the phone. I was like, God, please, you've got to help us out here. So I had to cool it off once more. It finally worked. I was able to pin the location and pin it to a family member of the pilot. It was his phone we were using. Then the dispatch called back and said, please contact this family member. Here's the phone number. They were able to get in contact with them finally. And then they had the location. So then I heard sirens. I'm like, here, oh, okay, we're good, we're good. But then the dispatch said, they have 20 units surrounding you. They can't find you. There's this wooded area. They don't know where the entry point is. So you're going to have to help. They said, now you're going to have to yell and scream with as loud of a voice as you can.
Wow.
And so I said, okay. And believe me, this energy came through me. It was not my voice, it was God's, because I screamed like a lioness so loud and long. I didn't have to take a breath. And the dispatch said, Carrie, you need to take a breath. I'm like, no way, lady. So the sheriff with a megaphone and I, finally connected. When he got there, he told me, he's like, we would have never found you if it wasn't for the pin and yelling, because he said, there's absolutely no way we knew that you were in this area. This is not where we were looking at all.
Oh, wow.
All these little, miracles adding up. So then they had to cut some trees down. He had to go find them, try to tell them where the location was. We had like a bush hog, like 4x4 with a farmer come take us out. By this time, they weren't used to this kind of a trauma there, so the paramedics were dry heaving, which slowed things up. My foot looked pretty bad to them. I can laugh about this now. So they got us out the farmer got us out to an area where they could put us on a stretcher, or me. I got out and then on an ambulance, and then they took me to the Warm Spring Airport, and then they flew me out on a helicopter, and then they flew the pilot out as well to the trauma unit. So there are many miracles that happened that I healed so fast. I had, orbit fracture. My hand was fractured, rib fractures on the left side. This whole eye was hematoma, on the back, hematoma, bleeding. And of course, the leg was the worst. So it was comminuted, which means it was like a force came down and just rang it like that, and it broke apart. So a lot of splintering happened. Both the tibia and fibula were broke. So I have pieces of bone missing from my tibia and fibula that would have to grow back, some large pieces actually. So they had to put a titanium plate and rod in with pins to support that. So that'll take some time for the bone to grow. But one of the miracles that happened is that once I was in the triage room, I remember everything. I never lost consciousness, every tiny thing I remember. They were whispering about a woman that might be paralyzed. And I'm like, whoa, well, thank God that's not me. And then I heard them say my trauma name. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I said, nope, not my story, not happening. Just, it's mental fortitude. I tell people that if you want to know one of the ways you get out of a situation, the one of the ways you heal, you have to have that strength of mind, that mental fortitude, where I said, this is not my story, not happening. And so it was later, some hours later, that the ortho surgeon came back, vertebral surgeon. He said, I was looking at your scans again, and I'm going to take you off spinal precaution. They were doing neuro checks every 10 minutes because I just looked at the same ones again, and I guess I didn't see them correctly. They're fine. You're good. No
Wow.
spinal compression. I take that, a lot of people were praying. I believe in prayer, believe in miracles that way. I could feel the prayers. After the surgery the next day, people were praying, and I felt this supernatural healing on my leg that I still feel, this sensation I can't describe. It is a pleasing, amazing, like fiery, icy blue sensation. I can feel the healing. And when people pray, or even a couple of people came in the room and held my hand, I could feel that. That started my healing. The mental fortitude, prayers work. God is real. Miracles happen. That started the healing. So I attribute that so much. People cannot forget the power of that, because we need that so desperately in our world right now. And there was a prayer meeting, a Zoom group that I had set up the Friday before the accident, just to pray for the whole world. And so that prayer group ended up being for me and the pilot by chance.
Wow.
So 8,000 people ended up streaming on that prayer group all at once. And just that alone, if if that came out, if that is a benefit from me having a crash, I'm okay with it. Because if we don't have a revival here, if we don't understand that this is a spiritual battle, if we don't understand that we can't humanly fight what we're seeing, and you know this, Mike, things that I see under the microscope are you, we need a supernatural intervention. We need God. And so if this is an impetus, a launching pad, one of them to get people to see that we need that connection with God, turn it something bad for good, then yeah, so be it. I'm
Well,
happy.
your experience seems like a microcosm of the healing that's needed for the world. I think that's what you're saying, and God always has a plan for each experience that we go through, and I think you've been able to glean God's plan for why you needed to go through this, why you needed to see these miracles of healing, because I believe, as you're explaining, this recovery that you're experiencing would not have been possible without God's hand at play.
I believe that 100%. Yes, all glory goes to God.
Well, so talk to us now about your healing journey. Obviously, you went through surgery and post-surgical recovery and all of that, but because you are a holistically minded individual and you understand healing, you understand the body's miraculous regenerative capabilities. Walk us through your strategies and sort of what you're doing to recover.
So many wonderful people reached out to me, and I've been feeling very blessed and humbled by that. And one of the first products I tried was something called a Juvent plate, and it's something you stand on. And by chance, about 3 months prior, I was doing a Florida tour with other doctors speaking out. And during that tour, I met the president of this company, Juvent. We all did, and he described his product. And I was interested, but skeptical. Okay, and it wasn't until he contacted me after the crash, saying, I think my product can help you, that I say, you know what, absolutely, I'll try it. Right. So sent to me, and it's a plate that you stand on, and it's not like a typical vibratory plate. This one uses micro impact, and I read the science behind it, and I was very intrigued. It matches individually with your own harmonic resonance impedance. And so it's individual to the person. It doesn't go over 0.3 Gs. So therefore, it's not inciting more inflammatory cytokines or encouraging that. It's stimulating bone growth, stem cells, mesenchymal cells, all kinds of things like that. And so I tried it the first 20 minutes on it, and I was not expecting this, but all of a sudden my back pain was better. I should back up. I have 5 vertebral fractures, although they're all stable. I forgot about that. So the vertebral fractures, that did give me a lot of pain, at least the muscle spasms, a lot of trauma with that. And at first I could only lay back, only maybe 45-degree angle. I couldn't sit up for more than 60 seconds at the
Wow.
most. With this plate, although I had no pain in my leg, it was with the back. So with this plate, I was able, after 2 sessions, the next day I could actually sit up for extended amount of time. Like, wow, is this really this plate? And I started to use it, as I did, I started to be able to stand up. And as you can see in that picture, that I can stand upright, no problem, 0 pain now. So that was starting my journey. As about a week ago, I got invited to try some EE therapy, or scalar wave therapy, at Layla Sentner's residence. So she said I could say that that's her residence there. I used it. So that was a blessing as well. So there were 32 units that I was around for many hours of each day for 5 days, maybe 6 days. And that added to my healing as well, because that one is using some subtle energies. And pretty much it's getting you in a toroidal energy field where it's harmonious with the human body to heal. It's in a very simplified way. I tell people, well, we know EMF and 5G are really hard on the in any life, whether it's an insect, animal, plant, human. It makes us sick in many ways. This is kind of putting you in a protective field, a protective bubble of what is harmonious to life. So then it allows your body to heal the way it knows how to heal. So our bodies know what to do. We know how to heal. We just have too many insults, too many toxins coming in, etc. It's giving your body kind of a breather, almost like a little. We're energetic beings, biophotonic beings, biologic and light, and this helps to give a little jump start to that healing. And I could feel it. The areas of my body that were giving me discomfort and pain, all of a sudden it was just better, better, better. I could feel this tingling, this energetic sensation going on, very pleasing. A little detox went on in the first night. But as I did, it was getting stronger, 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 stronger. I did do 5 sessions of hyperbaric chamber, which is good for the bones. So these are the things I used, and I was only using Alka-Seltzers or Advil for pain, original Alka-Seltzers. Like after 2 days from discharge from the hospital, that's it. I take nothing now. I have no pain, no pain at
What
all.
about now? I want to get back to especially the micro impact plate, but what about nutritionally? What are you doing dietary wise to
A lot of,
support? Yeah.
at first I could not care for myself. Couldn't wash my hair. I couldn't do anything. So people were wonderful making me bone broth, homemade, right? I was craving protein meat at first, so I just did what my body, wanted me to do. Now I don't crave it as much. It's funny how your body does what it wants. But a lot of soups, a lot of homemade soups, bone broth. Taking supplements from Global Health as well. So different kinds with that, making sure my body's detox with doing carbon 60 with that. And, it's just trying to be smart and balanced. I'm not doing anything extreme with my diet. I'm just trying to have as organic as possible, home cooked, many nutrients as possible, like we should. Yeah. And the sleep was a little disrupted at first, but it's better now.
Yeah. Well, let me just add to that just something. You may already be doing this and just didn't mention it, but I know that a form of silica, orthosilicic acid, which is the biological form of silica, is just extraordinary for bone density. And I think, and I'm going to explore this more, but I think the combination of dietary orthosilicic acid plus the Juvent micro impact plate rebuilds bone density throughout the body. That's at least my working theory. Is that something that you've ever looked into?
Yes, there's a supplement that Juvent has, and they have some substances in there, including the silica. Correct, Peter? Yeah.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. See, I didn't even know that you have silica in that supplement. But let me introduce Pete from Juvent, Pete Simonson. Thank you for joining us. And I was going to bring you in a second anyway, but there's this incredible intersection of events that's happening here, because I met Peter Simonson here, the CEO of Juvent. I met you 6 years ago in Dallas, and I bought one of these micro impact plates from you, and I've been using it every morning for 6 years. And it just became a routine. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even talk about it, but it just became a routine for me, kind of like, brushing your teeth or whatever. I just use this. But this plate, I think, has been extraordinary to get me up and mobile and moving very quickly. But I've never had the chance to talk to somebody, Dr. Madej, like you today, who's actually using it in recovery from an acute bone breakage. I mean, that's a whole different scenario.
What's interesting, Mike, is you have a long history with Juvent, using it for really general health and as a nutrient, but we've used it for fracture healing in the past quite a bit, with accident trauma and that sort of thing, and also spinal fusions. And that's kind of a controlled fracture that all the variables, and the fracture healing rate is off the charts. And I can show you some images of that. And then we had a friend of mine was getting an anterior cervical discectomy infusion, also known as an ACDF. It's the most common spinal fusion there is. And so he got on the Juvent, and we, we're taking very good images and for data collection because we were curious. I showed his images to over 100 spine surgeons because that's my background. When they looked at it, they estimated it to be generally 12 months, and the least was 3 months, and many at 18 months. When I told them it was a 6-week X-ray, they about just lost it. And
Wow.
so, and by coincidence, we had another hip fracture with a world famous kiteboard surfer. The doctor, he got on the Juvent. The doctor looked at the X-ray. He goes, son, I know you're desperate to get back. And he said, but these are the best 3-month X-rays I've ever seen. And he laughed. He goes, that's great, doc, but it's only been 2 months.
Wow.
And so when I heard about Carrie, we had just met previously, and I heard about her accident. I just said, listen, I got to let the smoke clear a little bit and get the, the fractures stabilized, but she needs Juvent. And that's going to really help her recovery from not only the bone healing, but also the wound healing. And, there's a lot there. And I don't think it's, I'd like to think we played a role in the spinal fractures and also in the tibia and fibia fractures. And my prediction is when the doctors look at the X-rays, they'll be pleasantly surprised. But we're early on in the process.
That's what I want to ask you, Dr. Madej. Are you sort of somehow tracking bone density recovery, and kind of you use yourself in a little bit of a healing experiment here?
Yeah. Well, I don't bone density, but I do have X-rays, and already now I was surprised at they had to take chunks of bone out that shattered. So my tibia and fibula are missing large amounts of bone, I should say. So already though, in the distal tibia, I have bone growth, good, healthy bone growth. That's awesome. That's amazing, 3 weeks post-op. And I have just a teeny bit of swelling in that leg. And, the ortho was like, that's amazing. Of course, they took the credit for it. That's because of a good surgeon.
Right.
But, okay. But I'm able to feel everything. My nerves were intact. That is just amazing because I had no circulation in my foot for hours. My foot had no circulation. It was twisted. I have all my blood flow, the nerve flow, the feeling. I can move. I don't have foot drop. I mean, toes are still working on those. I'm going to need rehab. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, it's pretty fantastic. And to see the bone growth already, hallelujah with that, right? So and let me back up. So when some of my friends wanted to try it out, right? So one of my friend's husbands tried it only 3 times. And the first time already, I didn't know he had 6 years of vertigo, severe vertigo. He has 0 vertigo after 3 20-minute sessions. He's just amazed. He tried everything, every traditional method, because balance is included with this. Also, I had 2 my friends that had old injuries, broken foot, old soccer injuries. Within 20 minutes, both of them said improvement of pain. First, nothing traditional helped. They went to physical therapy. They did all these things. They're being, one person after another trying it, they're like, I already see improvement. And of course, everyone's different, but I mean, it's not just me saying it, you're seeing other people say this too, and that it can reverse osteoporosis. I wish I knew this when I had my big clinic open, up to 11% increase of bone density. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and one of the concepts that Pete introduced to me that makes a lot of sense is that there is you could consider kinetic energy moving through your body as a kind of vitamin. Like you need a certain amount of kinetic stimulation for your body to function. Pete, you want to talk about that for a minute? Like what's the science behind that?
Absolutely. So putting it in context, the bone we've known for over 100 years, bone grows where bone's loaded. It's known as Wolff's Law, and it's kind of a cornerstone in orthopedics. But what we now know 100 years later is that it's not quite so simple, and that bone distinguishes between different types of loading. And so you hear the term weight-bearing exercise as that's great, but there's another set of functions that require impact loading. And in nature, we get that by walking. That's kind of nature's perfect form of daily impact. But what Juvent's been able to do is basically extract that element from that walking activity, just as we would extract the vitamin C from an orange. And we can serve it up in a very clean, efficient dose very safely. And that's actually not that easy to do, because impact, does have a bad name, and there's a reason for it, because high impact, and especially high impact at high frequency, can be damaging. And so what Juvent does is they've done the science, and it's years and years of research to find out that the bone is so mechanosensitive that it can use really small amounts of impact to get its work done. And what's really fascinating is virtually every cell in our body is mechanosensitive. And a lot of times it can be harmful, but many times it's part of our normal activity.
Was there anything else you wanted to add about the vitamin of exercise angle?
Sure. So I guess the tape will cut or start, but
Yeah.
my describing Juvent as the vitamin of exercise is really accurate, because if you take the key elements of a vitamin, it's something required for normal metabolism, it's something found in nature, and it's something that's always part of something else. And what Juvent is doing is essentially a vitamin of exercise. It covers those bases. It has the same dosing, it has the same response, and it has the same retention. And so, when do we need it? Pretty much our whole life. If we miss a day, it's not the end of the world.
So I'm sorry, but are there clinicians that use your product in the context of what Dr. Madej is going through? Is it, actual, not just fractures, but breakage of bones?
Not yet, because those studies to do, the trauma, they do it when they know the product, and then they'll put the patients on it. As far as that, those studies of trauma are very expensive, so it's hard for us to make any claims on that. But we know
Sure.
the first person, yeah. So what we do see is physical therapists using it, and when they put their accident patients on there recovering from a trauma, that sort of thing, it's such an adjunct that it makes such a difference in their healing. And it's interesting. That's really where it's making its entree and proliferation. And so, yeah, if I hope that answers your question.
Okay, yeah. And just to be clear with the audience of the relationships here, are you lending Dr. Madej a micro impact plate? Did you give her one?
I gave her one, a loaner. I just said, just try it. And I didn't want to get economics to get in the way of anything. It's like, hey, here, just use this.
Just use it.
You're a team member. We got to get you better, And so absolutely.
Okay. And also then from my point of view for the audience, Juvent has become a supporter of Brighteon, but this interview is not compensated in any way for any of us involved here. Yeah, you want to confirm? You want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm not getting compensated. I can tell you that I was just so excited, because this is what the world needs. You don't have to have a doctor to prescribe that for you. It's safe and effective. And I believe you have a program, Peter, where you can rent them out, I think, week by week too. I was so impressed with this, because I was skeptical, Mike. I didn't really think that it was going to work, honestly. So I came in not with the placebo mind. It was like, it's not going to work, but let's try it. And I'm like, does this really help? Can I really sit up? Because I was depressed. I couldn't sit up. It's really depressing. Yeah. And so I could sit up. I could stand. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, so of course, my friends helping me, because I couldn't be on my own, they were curious. They're like, can I try it? Of course. And then one by one saying, this is working on me too. This is working on me too. I mean, I just think it's fantastic. And then looking at the other stories, and then looking at the science, it makes sense. Yeah.
My experience with it, and then I want to ask you more questions about where you're going next with all of this, Dr. Madej, and your plans and so on. But my experience is kind of like, how if you go into a hot tub jacuzzi thing that's got water jets going, and you soak in there for 10 minutes, and you get out and you feel all that warmth and that circulation, and everything's more fluid. That's the way I feel getting off the Juvent plate after about 10, 15 minutes. I mean, that's my experience. Is that kind of what you're seeing too?
Yeah, and for me, it's more extreme, of course, because the stiffness and the muscles, and then seeing the ability, like I have my milestones like a little child now, because I can't do all these things, and all of a sudden I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and knowing similar patients that have had traumas, how long it takes for them to heal. There's no swelling in my leg, the foot, the movement it's. I mean, I should have pain. I don't have any pain. It's not traditional medicine that I'm following. I'm following what would be considered alternative in our world right now, or holistic. I'm excited because this is what I've been waiting for and praying for, because people are stuck in the old paradigm of this medicine that I call the death cult.
Yes.
It is not the profession that I thought it would be, or it was at one time. Trauma surgery, yes. After that, they're done with you. And then what do you do? We're going to take back our world with, we can take back our world. We can take back dominion and say, this is our world, our kids, our bodies. We know that there's technologies out there for free energy. We know there's technologies out there with frequency and energy that can heal our bodies. And we don't need them, the medical establishment or those in power, to restrict it from us, because
That's
these
right.
are safe and effective. And this is why I'm excited. I'm passionate. I think I've had family members suffering from things, even lymphedema. They didn't have to suffer. We could try something like this. I mean, osteoporotic patients, how many are suffering and they break a hip and they have to go in the nursing home and die quickly? We have ways to prevent so many things. Or dealing with pain without opioids. My gosh. I didn't need
Absolutely.
it. We don't have to be on those opioids that are destroying our country, right? This is why I'm excited. I want everybody to know this, and I want them to know that there's other things. Just there's things like the pulsed electromagnetic frequency, scalar wave, all kinds of things. And going back to knowing it's our holy temple, we need nutrients. I know you're always strong on that. How do we get them from food or a good supplement? We got to go back to that, and knowing that it takes a village sometimes to raise a kid, or a village to heal a person too, and to be there for one another. I mean, to me, I'm so praising God out of this, and I see the benefits so much of people reaching out with these other kinds of therapies or homeopathy. That let's let everybody know about this. Let's let everyone know this is accessible, and make it accessible for everybody. So that's my passion and my goal. If I can help educate people to do this, and I want to, how awesome is that, to even help one person get their life back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike,
Go ahead, Pete.
Mike, to comment on your previous postulation of Juvent and the proper nutrition, we've been helping patients reverse osteoporosis for years, and we're going to be doing that more formally. But you're dead on target. And when I got into Juvent initially, their original goal and mission statement was osteoporosis, and the plot spoiler, mission accomplished. But over 10 years, we started noticing so many other effects of people's vertical lifespan being increased, meaning that you're a vertical person, not laying down in bed. And it first started with my mom. That's when I first noticed it. But over a period of time, I literally realized that, with Juvent, I can help add years to 300 million people's lives. And when do we get a chance to do that? What do I have to do that's more important than that? I dropped everything else. I said, this is what I'm going to do.
And better quality years too that you're adding, because people are mobile, people are out of pain, a lot less suffering. And I want to mention too, just as a food scientist myself, the traditional history of food involved food gathering. You were physically mobile. You were out. You were planting food. You were harvesting. You were processing it. Shucking the corn or whatever you were doing, or picking berries, and that provided the kinetic exercise vitamin as part of your food preparedness. But now you order like food Uber or whatever, and you get all these processed carbohydrates, and you sit on your couch and just eat, and you're missing the whole exercise part of food.
Right. I mean, we've become not only just lazy, but even impact phobic. I mean, I know pro athletes who do a yoga, Pilates, spin class, weight, swimming, and there's no impact.
Interesting.
Those are very different, and it's a very educational thing. Like golfers, for example, I work with pro golfers. They don't want to run because they don't want to twist an ankle. It's $1 million injury. True. So there's various different reasons people become impact phobic, and then the ones that are walking in shoes with pads this thick, and mitigating what they would normally get. I mean, so we have this pandemic. Sorry to use that word. It's kind of, but my point is this widespread chronic shortage of impact. I call it mechanical scurvy.
And good. I like that term. Yeah. Mechanical scurvy. Well, let me add one more thought, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Madej. But, I live on a ranch, and walking around the ranch, the ground is always uneven. you're always stepping on rocks. Your feet are at different angles. You have all this proprioception feedback that's happening constantly. When I'm walking my animals, there's holes. The wild hogs are digging up things, and the dirt's uneven. And I think about the average city person, it's all perfectly level. There's no terrain, and they're missing out. You have to have adversity in your terrain, right? What are your thoughts, Dr. Madej?
100%. I believe our bodies were made fearfully and wonderfully. And it's amazing the more you understand how our body works. We are just not understanding who and what we are. So we don't get connection with outside anymore. Nobody goes outside for real sunlight. They block themselves with this chemicals called sunblock. We don't get the circadian rhythms through the natural light anymore. We don't go barefoot like we should on a natural ground connecting with the earth. We are in connection with everything. We connect with the earth. We have, circadian rhythms. We have the Schumann resonance. Everything is connected together. It's not that we're isolated. We have to understand that it's not a new age to say energy. We have EKGs that we do in our body, EEGs. We have static shock when we touch something. We have pH. pH is another word for voltage in the body. So every pH you see is equivalent to a certain voltage. We are biophotonic. We are electrical beings. This is not new age, everybody. So once we understand that, then a whole new world opens up, doesn't it? And then also knowing that how did we live for so many eons here without needing traditional medicine? It was because our bodies were made to walk, our bodies were made to work, our bodies were made to do creative things with our hands, to be communal. We are social beings. We should cook together, eat together, sit down together. This is how we solve anxiety, depression, right? We are communal people, and we know where our food comes from. We have a respect for the environment. We wouldn't pollute it. We wouldn't toxify it. And knowing that we're not just biologic entities, we have minds that are powerful. We can create around us, and we are spiritual beings as well. And that quantum physics is a real thing. We can affect something even from a distance, even through prayer. So these are exciting times. It's all the way you look through the lens. Yes, we have carnage and destruction around us. I don't disagree with that. But I refuse to look at only that. I really am so intent on knowing that just as the darkness rises, grace is rising too. It's so much more powerful. And this is our world. And you have children, Mike. And I don't have children, but I fight for all the kids, because there is a way. There's always a way for us to take this world back. And I'm going to do everything I can.
Well, if anything, I would say, for whatever reason, you are now more profound than before this crash. I mean, I don't know. Your transformation is apparent just listening to you talk. I mean, did you want to?
I have a righteous anger, though. It's a good way, though. Say, I'm tired of what we all go through, and I know how amazing we are made, and I know that all the illnesses throughout my experiences are induced upon us. We don't need cancer, autoimmune disease, all these things that are happening to us. Everything is induced upon us. Our genetics, we've been lied to about our genetics, okay?
Yep.
We are not just born with bad genes. No, we can't fix our genes. Our genes are malleable. So this is a lie propagated over and over, forced on these injections that cause cancer, cause autism. Enough is enough. This world is beautiful. We are not overpopulated. We have enough resources. We've been lied to about everything. We don't need that much money to live on. We've been just, these parasites have been drawing things away from us. And I'm fearless now. I'm like, I'm not afraid of death, not at all. And when you lose that fear of everything around you, including death, because I know where I'm going, that's just amazing. You finally start living again and just saying no. And once you have another person join you like that, another one, that is a synergetic energy, right? Wow. And those are the lions and lionesses we need. And I know those shriveled little people behind the curtain will scream and run. They are no match for those that are connected with God. They are no match for those that do things out of pure love and truth and justice. And so every day that I'm here, I am more resolute to do that.
Well, thank God for you and for your experience, your survival, and sharing all of this with us. I'd love to keep in touch as your healing journey progresses. And I know the audience wants to see how you're doing. So many people were sending prayers and, tweeting out messages and in support of you. So it's just wonderful to see you and your smile and your optimism. It's just wonderful.
And I'll share the x-rays because it'll be interesting to see the progression of those.
Absolutely.
I can't wait.
Yeah, Pete, even though this interview wasn't, entirely about the Juvent technology, but is there anything you just want to add in conclusion to this?
Well, I think that, I think the most important thing we talk about today is Carrie's recovery, and that's the headline. And I think that, Juvent, this may introduce a lot of people to Juvent, and it's not only healing powers for trauma, but also just daily living and, reduction of pain meds and all sorts of other indications. And, if that opens that door, that's a kind of a story for another day. But that's, in my opinion, that's brilliant that she's getting better. And I know, when I sent her a platform, I knew that she would not only get better, but she would be better overall, like you. And I see it all the time. And we've, for 10 years now, when people buy a Juvent and they don't like it after 6 weeks, we buy it back. We have an over 95% success rate. So I know how the story ends. Yeah.
Well, and I'll just add one thing. I credit Juvent for protecting my bone density. I nearly broke my hand unloading a heavy piece of equipment at my lab. It was like 300 or 400 pounds, and it almost crushed my hand, vertically like that. I thought it was broken, and 60 seconds later, nope, perfectly fine.
Awesome.
I was like, wow, I feel like Wolverine, bones of titanium.
Maybe you do.
So, sometimes preventing an injury is also as good as healing quickly or better.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
So-
absolutely. Listen, if we can prevent somebody having a fall fracture as an older person, that's for many people, that's the beginning of a death sentence.
That's true.
And we can improve their balance and increase their bone density. That's, again, adding more vertical years.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Pete, for taking the time, and thank you for loaning this unit to Dr. Madej. And Dr. Madej, I just want to thank you for taking the time and know that you are loved by the world. Your work, your contributions to people's knowledge and optimism is dearly needed in our world. And so thank you for all that you do, and thank you for still being here with us.
Oh, thank you, Mike. It's my pleasure, honor, and my duty. And, I really appreciate everything you do. So it takes all of us. So thank you.
It's true. That's right. Okay. Absolutely.
Thanks so much, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pete. And thank you all for watching today here on Brighteon.tv. I'm Mike Adams, and built this platform so that we can have these uncensored conversations to help people live higher quality lives with less suffering and more resilience with all the things the world throws at us. So thank you for watching today, everybody. Take care, and feel free to share this interview on other platforms and other channels. Be well. The world we once knew is collapsing. We're being warned to expect rolling blackouts, and our political leaders are deliberately shutting down pipelines, fuel refineries, nuclear power plants, and energy exploration. The currency is collapsing, while financial assets are plummeting in value, and the global food supply is being deliberately decimated. To survive this war being waged on humanity, you need more than just regular prepping. You need resilient prepping. And that's the title of my new free audiobook, Resilient Prepping. You can download the entire audiobook and a printable PDF transcript for free right now at resilientprepping.com. Resilient Prepping teaches practical strategies for prepping in 3 layers: high-tech, low-tech, and no-tech. Resilient Prepping is your ultimate guide to surviving the total collapse of the world as we know it, because that's exactly what globalists are trying to achieve. Download this entire audiobook for free right now at resilientprepping.com.